Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm. In this video, we are going to talk about a concept called compositing. We are going to talk about how to cut people out of images. So I have this picture of Shia LaBeouf here doing this kind of funny pose. I figured it'd be fun to composite him out of this image, basically get rid of the background behind him, and then we can do something fun with this image once we get rid of this background that we don't want. So there are numerous ways to composite. The first thing we have to make sure that we have set is we have to make sure this image is rasterized in order to composite the image at all, right? In order to manipulate the pixels on this image, to delete them, to paint over them, any of that stuff, we have to make sure it's rasterized. So I'm going to right click here on the layer and rasterize that layer. So now that's ready to go. It's rasterized. Now I have some options up here. These first three are actually, sorry, not the first three. The first tool itself is the move tool. But after that, we have three tools that are mainly focused, excuse me, mainly used for compositing. So let's take a look at each of these tools individually and how they work. First, we have the rectangular marquee tool. If I select that, I can basically draw a rectangle and then hit the delete key, and that would get rid of whatever I've drawn that rectangle around. That's pretty easy to understand. Now notice that whenever I selected it, there are this dash lines that are kind of moving around. These are called marching ants. So if I use the words marching ants, that's what I'm referring to. So I have these marching ants. That means that that is a selection that I have selected. Now the keyboard shortcut to deselect and make your marching ants go away is Control D, and that makes that go away. Control D for deselect. Let's see what other options we have here. We have elliptical marquee tool, so that will draw a circle and allow us to delete. That's fine. Control D. We also have single row marquee tool, which will allow us to create, basically to delete a single row. It's a single row of pixels, so it's not perfect for a photograph like this. But if we're doing image work that requires us to, oh, I hit the Windows key instead. If we're doing work with images that have a smaller amount of pixels, for example, if we're creating some pixelized art for a video game and we only have 32 pixels by 32 pixels on our workspace, then maybe we want to delete an entire row. So we have a single row and single column marquee tools. Below that, we have something called the lasso tool. So we have the regular lasso tool. That's the default tool that we see here, which basically means I can just draw a shape. And as long as I match the end of the shape up with where I started the shape roughly, it will allow us to create any shape we want. Notice I have my marching ants, which means I can delete, and that section goes away. Control D. There's also a polygonal lasso tool. This one behaves a bit differently from the first one. Basically, you click, and then it creates a straight line that comes off of where you've clicked. When you click again, it allows you to create another straight line. So you can create shapes that have straight lines in them. Okay, perfect. All right. Then we have, let's look at the magnetic lasso tool. Here's how that works. You click and then you just start kind of moving around, and it will look around for pixels that are differently colored than the pixels they're near. And it will kind of guess what you want to cut out. So notice that over here on this person's jeans, it noticed that those jeans were differently colored than these, and so it tried to grab those. So let's zoom in on this so we can get a better look at what we're doing. So notice that these pixels here are a slight variation of color from these pixels here. Photoshop realized that, okay, these pixels are different from those pixels, right? And so it made some decisions for us. This worked pretty well, but Sometimes the magnetic lasso tool doesn't work as great as it should, so I wouldn't rely on it as your primary mode of compositing. I'm going to go ahead and click delete. Alrighty, so those are the lasso tools. Then we have the magic wand tool. The magic wand tool will work for backgrounds or for items that are, let me turn off that white background for some reason. They'll work on items that are usually pretty uniform in color. So down here we have some tiles that look pretty close to each other in color. If I click there, it will grab all of the pixels that are closely related to the pixel I selected. All right. Now if we zoom in on it, we can see that some of those pixels are darker than the one I originally selected, and so it's not going to choose those. Up here, we can manage how this brush works or how this wand works. We can change the tolerance, meaning we can increase it. Let me zoom out so we can see the effect. So if I back up and I click over here, notice it selected more pixels because we have a higher tolerance for differences in color from pixel to pixel, right? So you can change the tolerance there. You can also turn on or off contiguous. Contiguous means if the pixel next to it is the same color, then it'll select that. That's contiguous. So like when someone says the contiguous United States, it's the states that are all next to each other geographically. They touch each other. There's borders. Now, Alaska and Hawaii are not in the contiguous United States. They're not a part of the main landmass of the United States. That's what contiguous means in this context as well. If I click a pixel, it's going to look for all the pixels that are touching it that have the same color, and it's going to spread out from there. If I uncheck contiguous, then it's going to look for every pixel in my document that shares that color or is close enough to the color of the pixel that I selected. Okay. The magic wand tool really should only be used in special situations, meaning let's say you've downloaded a picture and the main subject of the picture is great, but then there's a completely white background and you just want to get rid of the white background. Magic wand is perfect for that. Then you also have object selection tool. The object selection tool will basically allow you to kind of choose, like you select an area and then it will decide, it will kind of do some math and decide which object you are selecting. So for example, maybe if I use it on Shy right here, maybe it'll decide, and it did a pretty good job. It noticed that I was looking for Shia LaBeouf, and it did a pretty good job outlining him. Object select tool might work out for you from time to time. We have quick selection tool. This tool is pretty fun. Basically, you just click and start kind of dragging, and then it'll include areas where you've dragged. This is a very quick way to composite images. That's pretty quick. All right, good. So those are those. We can also use the eraser. The eraser, where is my eraser? Where are you, sir? Oh, there she is. The eraser will essentially just get rid of pixels. The eraser erases pixels. So we can use the eraser to get rid of pixels as well. So if we want to do some fine-tuning compositing work over here, we can lower the brush and we can just start deleting. Now notice that whenever I delete, it doesn't delete the whole thing. There's a little bit of fuzziness. You can create, let's see, the hardness is up pretty high. Smoothing flow. Smoothing is pretty good. All right, so it creates kind of like a smoothing effect. It's supposed to be a really hard brush, but it's not really behaving like that. Let's see. Yeah. When we get closer into the pixels, it's going to do, this is called anti-aliasing. What this means is it's going to try to create a gradual transition from pixel to pixel. And so, Photoshop is kind of doing this for us. Now, so using the brush or using the, using the eraser, it's going to give us kind of a blurry effect on the edge if we're not careful. So let me back up and let's take a look. So notice that there's kind of a little bit of a blurry effect there if we back up far enough. Now we could get in there and start deleting the black outline, but then we start cutting into Shia LaBeouf himself. But really, it's just all about preference, right? You just want to make sure you use the tool that's best for the job that you're doing. I like to zoom in really, really closely when I'm doing very, very close compositing work. And I like to start with, big chunks of the image. I like to get rid of big chunks of the image right away. So what I might do is I might use like the lasso tool just to very quickly grab chunks of the image I don't want and then delete those. So that's good. Let's go here and just kind of do a rough outline of our subject here and then come up here and connect it and delete. And then whenever I'm done getting rid of the big parts of the image, I might come in here and use, let's try the quick selection tool. Start using the quick selection tool to see if so you notice that I actually grabbed his fingers on accident. If you use, oh, hello, that's not what I wanted. So control will allow you to actually cut that and move it. That's not what I wanted at all. Is it Alt? Yeah. So if you hold Alt, it'll let you put stuff back in to the selection. All right. Or I guess remove things from the selection you didn't mean to select. Okay, a little better. Let's keep it going. So yeah, compositing can take forever if you really, really, really get into the details and you get really focused on it. You could take a while on compositing. Luckily, Photoshop has a lot of great tools that make it pretty easy and speeds up the process. We just have to use the right tool for the situation. Okay, so I'm pretty close to being done. I just have some areas down here I need to fix. So let me grab an eraser, actually. Let's grab my eraser. And let's get in here with the eraser for the fine detailed work. Hello, my eraser. That's weird. Oh, so this is something that's going to happen to you from time to time. While you're compositing, you're going to be like, all right, we're good. I'm going to start doing something and nothing's going to happen. It's probably because you have something selected somewhere in your document. And notice that I still have this area under his arm selected. If your brushes aren't working, Control D and then try it again and it should work out. All right, so I'm going to get rid of the stuff here under his fingers. Now I'm not doing a great job on compositing. I'm kind of going quickly because I don't want to take too much time. I don't want you guys to sit here and watch me work on this stuff the whole time. That's probably super boring. But I do want to do a good enough job so that the document that we're about to create looks good. I want to just show you. Now, if you're following along and you're going, oh, this is for the Through the Window project. No. What we're doing right now, and I'm going to cut off the rest of his pinky just because we accidentally cut it off, and it'll look weird if it's just this weird skinny pinky. All right, so this is not the Through the Window project. There will be a separate video for that project. This is for just playing around, just practicing compositing. Now, you may not be able to see it on the video here, but notice that there are some lines that we didn't really want. That's not great, right? That's because I was using the eraser over here, and remember that little bit of fuzziness on the end of our compositing with the eraser? that created this thing called an artifact. Artifacts are leftover pieces of the image that you should have deleted that maybe you miss because you're looking at it with this like checkered background. But as soon as you put it into the new document, or you put another picture behind it, it stands out really, really obviously, right? That's artifacts. We want to get rid of artifacts as much as possible. So for this, because it's pretty easy, I can see it. I'm just going to increase the size of my eraser here and just go in and erase the artifacts. Now there's probably more artifacts that I need to deal with, but again, I'm not spending too much time and I'm not caring too much about the quality of this. We're just practicing for now. Okay, so now he's pretty well composited out of the background. Now I have a standalone Shia LaBeouf doing his little stretches, and there's nothing for him to, nothing to get in his way. And then, Batman shows up. Not good. Batman's here. So notice that. So my goal for this is to try to get Shia LaBeouf back into that background, so it looks like him and Batman are facing off against each other. When you're compositing images together, there are a couple of tricks to make it seem really, really to make it really seem like they exist in the same place. So first of all, he's too big. I need to shrink him down by quite a bit. So I'm going to Control T and I'm going to shrink him down. We'll kind of place him back here. Keep him, shrink him down a little bit because he's supposed to be in the background. And I want him kind of right there. It's not great, but it's something, right? Actually, I kind of want him right here. And his eyes, he's not really looking at Batman. He's kind of looking away, so it feels inauthentic. So what I can do is, let's flip this image. So edit and transform, and let's flip horizontal. So now I can make him kind of look, that looks a whole lot better. Now his eyes are basically locked with Batman's eyes. All right, perfect. So he looks pretty good. The scale is right, and it looks like his eye line is correct. The problem is he doesn't really look like he belongs in the image. This is a really dark image, but then there's a very bright light source right behind him. This is where color correction is going to play a huge role. You want to bring in adjustment layers and things of that nature to make this a lot more, I guess, to match the colors as much as possible. So I'm very quickly going to throw some adjustments on here. I'm trying not to make this video longer than 20 minutes, but I just want to show you how quickly we can make a really nice effect. Let's apply a filter here. And I just want to, actually I don't want a filter. I do want an adjustment layer. So let's go in here and do a brightness and contrast adjustment layer. And I'm going to drop the brightness by quite a bit. Okay. And maybe increase the contrast. Notice how they're already starting to kind of feel like they're together. Now, just like with the colorize assignment, when we created that new adjustment layer, it created a mask. And I could actually get rid of this mask and only paint it onto him if I felt like he was the only thing I wanted to actually darken. But I want to kind of darken both of them, both the background scene and him, just to make it feel a little bit more like they match. Let's see, what else? Let's do a hue and saturation filter. And let's make it a little bit bluer. No, that looks good. Drop the saturation by a bit because his workout gear is very, very bright. And add some more black into it. Okay. And then I want to do it again. but this time I'm going to use an exposure channel, and I'm actually going to invert. Where'd my properties go? Oh, right here. I want to invert the mask, and then I only want to paint in the exposure where I want it to go with the brush. I'm going to increase my brush size by a bit here. And then, so I'll paint it in here. Now it doesn't look like anything's happening yet because we haven't actually changed the settings for the mask. We haven't actually added an exposure, but notice down there it is. So then when I click on here, I can increase the exposure or decrease the exposure. And notice how he's the only thing in the image that's being affected. That's what I want. So we're already getting pretty close. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to add a little bit of an orange glow coming off of the back of him here, because the light on this side matches, the color matches pretty well, but over here the light doesn't match very well, so I want to kind of like lighten him up with an orange glow. So I can actually just create a solid color, or you know what? Yeah, solid color should work, and let's go with an orange, that bright yellowish orange. That looks pretty good. And let's invert this as well. And then when we come in here, we can kind of paint it with a very soft brush. I want a soft round brush, and I just want to change my exposure level. So let's do, here, let's paint in one, and then we'll see what we want our exposure to be. Or our exposure type. Linear dodge, maybe? Screen dodge. That looks pretty good. Overlay. Maybe. Let's do overlay. All right. And continue painting it in. Now I'm just trying to get the kind of inside of his jacket there. I'm going to come back in here with an eraser and get rid of the extra pieces that I don't like. So then I'm going to come in here with the eraser. I just want that nice little line of light that just looks really good and just kind of matches the color. Beautiful. So look, I mean, just a couple of quick changes and it already looks pretty good. Now I could do a lot of things, like he's kind of on some mud, so I can add a very faint reflection here. I could do, I could play around with the color a lot more and try to get it to match a lot more. I can change the scale a little bit more. There are a lot of things that I can do to make this really stand out. But so far, in roughly about 20 minutes, we've just made something that looks pretty good. Another hour or so tweaking this, we can make it look really good. But for right now, that looks pretty good so far. So I'm going to leave it here. Hopefully you've learned a bit about compositing and adding images together and, make light adjustments and all that stuff. Play around with this stuff. Like, there's really nothing, you can't go wrong in Photoshop, because if you do make a big mistake, you just undo the mistake and you move on, right? Every mistake we make allows us to learn. So I'm going to let you guys go. Move on to the quiz, which is going to be a quiz about the different compositing tools that you'll use. and then you move on to the through the window project, which I will also have a video showing you kind of how to do that. All right, thanks for paying attention, and I'll see you next time.